Troy Donahue names the gay two actors of old Hollywood. He dated in secret. Troy Donahue was born Merle Johnson Jr. on January 27, 1936, in New York City. Raised in a well-educated family, his mother a stage actress and his father a publishing executive, Donahue seemed destined for the arts. After studying journalism at Columbia University, he made the shift to acting, adopting the name Troy Donahue to match the Hollywood heartthrob image studios sought in the late 1950s. With his sun-kissed blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and calm demeanor, he became an overnight sensation. By the early 1960s, he was not only a leading man in teen romances, but a pop culture icon, adored by millions. Though fame came fast, the pressures of the spotlight would test him. Behind the image of the perfect boyfriend was a man grappling with identity, fame, and personal demons. His journey would be marked by dramatic rises, painful falls, and a lifelong struggle to find lasting peace. Troy Donahue's first steps into stardom. Troy Donahue's career began modestly, far from the red carpets and flashing cameras. After graduating from Columbia University with a background in journalism, he headed west to California with dreams of becoming an actor. It was there that he caught the attention of a Warner Brothers talent scout. His striking good looks and gentle charm were impossible to ignore, and he soon landed small roles in films like Man Afraid, 1957, and Monster on the Campus, 1958. Though the parts were brief, his screen presence was undeniable. His breakout came when Warner Brothers cast him in A Summer Place, 1959, a romantic drama that would catapult him into teen idol status, with his new screen name and growing fan base. Troy Donahue officially stepped into the spotlight, ushering in an era where he would define the dreamboat image of 1960s American cinema. A Summer Place, a lifetime legacy, the role that defined Troy Donahue. In 1959, Troy Donahue's life and career changed forever with his role as Johnny Hunter in the romantic drama A Summer Place. Starring alongside Sandra Dee, the film told the story of young love caught between adult scandals and societal expectations. Donahue's portrayal of Johnny, gentle, rebellious, and heartbreakingly sincere, captivated a generation of moviegoers and earned him instant heartthrob status. His sun-kissed hair, soulful gaze, and effortless charm became the poster of teen dreams in the early 1960s. What made the performance memorable wasn't just Donahue's looks, but his natural vulnerability on screen. Audiences saw a young man torn between passion and duty, innocence and consequence. A Summer Place wasn't just a hit film. It became a cultural phenomenon, and so did its star. The film's haunting theme music, paired with Troy's emotive presence, cemented his status as a pop culture icon. The success of the role opened the door to a string of romantic leads in films like Parish, Susan Slade, and Rome Adventure. But no matter how many films followed, A Summer Place would remain the definitive moment, the role that introduced Troy Donahue to the world and etched his name into Hollywood history. The golden years in Hollywood. By the early 1960s, Troy Donahue had become one of the most recognized and adored faces in Hollywood. Following his breakthrough in A Summer Place, he starred in a string of box office hits that solidified his place as the quintessential romantic lead of his generation. Films like Parish, 1961, Rome Adventure, 1962, and Palm Springs Weekend, 1963, showcased his ability to bring charm and depth to characters navigating the emotional roller coasters of young love, heartbreak, and identity. Donahue wasn't just an actor. He was a phenomenon. Warner Brothers heavily promoted him as a teen idol, and his image was plastered across movie posters, fan magazines, and bedroom walls across America. Girls swooned, boys admired him, and the press couldn't get enough of his golden boy appeal. At his peak, Troy Donahue symbolized a clean-cut, all-American dream that perfectly matched the cultural mood of early 60s America. Despite critics often brushing off his acting as one-dimensional, Troy's natural screen presence and emotional sincerity connected with audiences. He became not just a movie star, but a symbol of youth, beauty, and fleeting innocence. This era marked the zenith of his fame, his name synonymous with box office success and nationwide adoration. Troy Donahue's shining legacy, more than just a teen idol. Troy Donahue's achievements in Hollywood extended beyond the box office numbers and fan adoration. While many viewed him as a heartthrob of the early 60s, his contribution to pop culture and cinema reflected a pivotal era in American entertainment. He was part of a unique generation of actors who bridged the innocence of the 1950s with the cultural shifts of the 1960s, capturing the hearts of audiences during a time of transformation. Donahue's most notable accomplishment was the way he helped define the clean-cut romantic lead. His roles in films such as A Summer Place, Parish, and Rome Adventure became templates for later teen and coming-of-age dramas. His performances, though sometimes understated, gave depth to stories about love, loss, and growing up, universal themes that transcended his era. Aside from film, Troy made a lasting impact on television, appearing in series like Surfside 6, Hawaiian Eye, and The Love Boat, showcasing his range beyond romantic leads. Even after his peak fame, he remained a beloved figure, making guest appearances and continuing to connect with fans well into the 1980s and 1990s. Troy Donahue's quiet struggles with love and family. Troy Donahue's on-screen persona often portrayed the picture-perfect romantic lead, charming, loyal, and deeply in love. But his real-life relationships were far more complicated and less idyllic. Behind the dazzling smile and Hollywood glamour was a man quietly struggling to find lasting connection and peace within his personal life. Donahue was married only once, to actress Suzanne Pleshette, in 1964. The marriage, however, was shockingly brief. It lasted less than a year. The couple divorced just months after tying the knot, with both later admitting that their youthful whirlwind romance had been too fast and ill-fated from the start. Despite the public interest in their union, neither pursued a long-term reconciliation, and Donahue never remarried. Though he did not have a traditional family life, Donahue did have a son, whom he did not know about until many years later. In a surprising turn, he discovered he had fathered a child from a previous relationship in the 1960s. The revelation came as both a shock and a blessing, offering him a late-in-life connection he hadn't expected, but deeply valued. Though he and his son never developed a traditionally close father-son bond, Donahue expressed gratitude for the opportunity to know him. Throughout his later years, Donahue spoke candidly about his failures in love and the impact of fame on his personal life. The adoration of millions could never fill the loneliness that fame sometimes brought. He admitted that his struggles with addiction, identity, and career instability often interfered with his ability to maintain deep, meaningful relationships. Troy Donahue's hidden truth revealed in his last letter. In the months following Troy Donahue's passing in 2001, a letter surfaced among his belongings that shocked even those closest to him. It wasn't found immediately, tucked away in a drawer inside a faded leather notebook. The note was addressed simply, "To whom it may concern." Though brief, its contents were intimate, reflective, and startlingly raw. For a man who had spent his life maintaining a polished public image, the vulnerability revealed within that letter peeled back decades of silence and restraint. In the letter, Donahue expressed regret, not for his fame, nor for the many roles he had played, but for the personal relationships he had allowed to wither over time. He admitted that his pursuit of Hollywood stardom had come at the expense of love, loyalty, and inner peace. He wrote candidly about his failed marriage, his estranged family, and his own shortcomings as a father, revealing a deep longing for reconciliation and forgiveness, both from others and from himself. Perhaps the most poignant part of the letter was a passage where Donahue revealed his decades-long battle with identity and isolation. He hinted at the immense pressure he had felt to conform to the idealized image of a matinee idol, writing, "I was more of a product than a person. I didn't know who I really was beneath the hair dye and the smiles." Some have speculated that this was his subtle way of acknowledging aspects of himself that he had long buried, emotional struggles, possible questions about his sexuality, or a deep-seated fear of being forgotten. The letter did not name names nor point fingers. Instead, it was filled with a quiet sorrow and a plea for understanding. It ended with a line that lingered painfully in the hearts of those who read it. "If I could trade all the applause for one more honest conversation, I would." Troy Donahue's heartbreaking confession in his final letter. In his final letter, written in quiet solitude during the last months of his life, Troy Donahue laid bare a truth that fame had forced him to bury for decades. The content of that letter wasn't merely reflective. It was confessional, emotional, and in many ways, redemptive. It read like a man releasing his final breath, not just from life, but from the burdens he had carried in silence for so long. He began the letter not with nostalgia, but with apology. "To those I loved but failed, I hope you found peace even when I couldn't give it to you," he wrote. From there, he confessed his greatest fear, being remembered as a hollow icon rather than a whole human being. He acknowledged that much of his life had been lived for others, for studios, for fans, for an industry that demanded beauty over depth, obedience over authenticity. Donahue opened up about the times he compromised himself for roles, publicity, and approval. He admitted that in the process of becoming Troy Donahue, the matinee idol, he had lost track of Troy, the flawed, emotional, sensitive man behind the camera. In one heart-wrenching passage, he revealed that there were times when he couldn't even look at his own reflection without seeing a stranger. "My face was famous, but my soul was forgotten, even by me." The letter didn't dwell in bitterness, but it was heavy with sorrow. He addressed past relationships, romantic and familial, expressing remorse for the way ambition had taken priority over connection. He admitted that he had pushed people away when he needed them most, out of pride, fear, or simply not knowing how to love himself. Most revealing, however, was his acknowledgement of long-suppressed truths about his identity. Though he never explicitly labeled his sexuality, Donahue hinted at a lifelong internal struggle, writing, "There were parts of me I never let anyone see, not because I was ashamed of them, but because the world wasn't ready. Maybe I wasn't, either." These lines, for many, were a quiet but powerful declaration of a man who had lived half in shadow and was finally stepping into the light. The letter concluded not with regret, but with hope, a desire that others would learn from his story, live more honestly, and forgive more freely. "If you remember me," he wrote, "remember that I was trying, even when I got it wrong." The quiet passing of Troy Donahue. Troy Donahue's final days were not marked by flashing cameras or the buzz of Hollywood premieres. Instead, they were quiet, reflective, and removed from the glamorous spotlight that once followed his every step. In early September of 2001, Donahue suffered a massive heart attack at his Santa Monica apartment. Despite being rushed to St. John's Health Center, the damage was irreversible. He passed away peacefully on September 2, 2001, at the age of 65. The news of his death barely rippled through the entertainment world. For someone who once graced magazine covers and melted hearts across America, the lack of media frenzy was striking. There were no elaborate tributes or televised memorials. It was as though the world had forgotten the man who once embodied teenage dreams and romantic innocence on the silver screen. But to those who knew him intimately, Troy's passing left a quiet ache, a reminder of how fleeting fame can be, and how even icons can disappear without thunder. His funeral was modest, attended by close friends and a few devoted fans. What stood out wasn't the celebrity turnout, but the heartfelt memories shared by those who truly knew the man behind the image. They spoke of his gentle spirit, his deep love for music and poetry, and his decades-long search for inner peace. In the weeks that followed, some began to reflect on Troy's life not just as a star, but as a symbol of an era, an age of innocence and cinematic romance that had long faded. While his career had its highs and many lows, Troy Donahue's story didn't end with a tabloid headline, but with a quiet goodbye. And in that silence, his legacy became all the more human. The real cause behind Troy Donahue's death. Troy Donahue's death on September 2, 2001, came as a quiet end to a life once lived in bold headlines. The official cause was a massive heart attack, medically, a myocardial infarction, that left his heart unable to recover. But for those who had followed his turbulent life, the signs had long been there. Years of substance abuse, emotional strain, and a lifestyle once marked by excess had taken a toll on the actor's health long before that final, fatal event. Though Donahue had sobered up in the latter part of his life, he often spoke candidly about the damage caused by his earlier years. During the height of his fame in the 1960s, the pressure to maintain his clean-cut image clashed with his personal struggles. Alcohol became both an escape and a trap. The charming heartthrob on screen was often fighting demons behind closed doors. These internal battles silently chipped away at his health, setting the stage for the eventual breakdown. In the months leading up to his death, Donahue had been living modestly, far removed from Hollywood's spotlight. Friends described him as peaceful, but physically fragile. The heart attack struck suddenly, but it wasn't entirely unexpected for those closest to him. There had been warning signs: shortness of breath, fatigue, occasional chest discomfort, all common in someone with a weakened cardiovascular system. His passing was not just the result of one tragic event, but rather the cumulative weight of a lifetime lived intensely, both in public and in private. Troy Donahue died from a heart attack. Yes, but more deeply, he died from a heart that had carried too much for too long. The real reasons. Troy Donahue's heart gave out. The official cause of Troy Donahue's death was a heart attack. But for those who truly knew the man behind the screen persona, his heart had been breaking long before the final blow came. The charming face of 1960s Hollywood had carried the burden of fading fame, emotional isolation, and years of substance abuse, elements that quietly eroded his physical health over decades. By the 1970s, Donahue's career had drastically declined, struggling to land roles and drowning in debt. He turned to alcohol to dull the pain. This pattern of self-destruction eventually spiraled into addiction. Though he entered rehab and found sobriety in the 1980s, the damage had been done. The years of binge drinking, poor diet, and stress left his cardiovascular system weak and vulnerable. Adding to this was the emotional toll. Donahue often admitted feeling lonely and forgotten in his later years. He lived modestly, disconnected from the Hollywood spotlight that once adored him. His sudden heart attack in 2001 wasn't just a medical event, it was the final punctuation mark on a life slowly undone by neglect, both internal and external. Doctors confirmed he suffered a myocardial infarction, but those closest to him understood the truth was deeper. His death was not caused solely by clogged arteries. It was the culmination of emotional scars, missed chances, and a heart that had endured too many disappointments.